In this episode of O'Reilly Radar, find out why Amazon's Kindle Lending Library may be a bad deal for publishers. We also take a look at top stories published across O'Reilly's platforms, and LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman explains how technology can aid in job creation. Now, we'll get to all that in just a moment, but up first, we're going to take a look at some of the news that's on our radar. Many of us rely on mapping services like Google Maps to get from point A to point B, but the utility of these tools abruptly cuts off when we reach the front doors of our destinations. Indoor navigation has, until recently, been defined by posted signs and the kindness of strangers. But what if you could pull out your mobile device and easily navigate unfamiliar indoor locations? Meridian, Nokia, and other companies have been working to make indoor navigation useful. Now, Google is jumping into the indoor fray as well. A new release of Google Maps for Android includes floor plans for a number of airports, malls, and retailers in the US and Japan. Google's indoor maps can guide you from spot to spot, and they even know which floor you're on. For now, Google's indoor navigation is available in a limited rollout. The feature is only compatible with Android devices, and the list of participating outlets is pretty slim. Nonetheless, this is one of those we've always needed this sort of tools. So watch for indoor nav from the likes of Google and others to quickly transition from a novelty to an established and expected part of future mapping apps. We'll be keeping an eye on the evolution of these geo tools and nav applications through continuing coverage on O'Reilly Radar and at O'Reilly's upcoming WARE conference. Coming up next, I find out why O'Reilly's Joe Wikert thinks that Amazon's Kindle Lending Library is a bad deal for publishers. Joe also discusses some of the trends that he's spotting in advance of February's Tools of Change for Publishing conference. Joined now by Joe Wikert, one of the chairs for the Tools of Change for Publishing conference, which is coming up in February in New York. Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah, happy to be here, Mac.
So a couple weeks ago, you had a post that was critical of Amazon's Kindle Lending Library. I was wondering if you could articulate what it is that you were concerned about and whether or not any of those concerns have been addressed in the weeks since.
Yeah, and I would say that my concerns they remain the same basically, and they hinge on the fact that the program I think is terrific for Amazon, and it's pretty darn good for customers as well, especially since it will bring more people into the Prime program for Amazon. But I don't think it's a good deal for publishers and authors, and that's really what I've been hung up on. They talked in their press release about how Amazon has offered publishers flat fees for participation in this, and I just feel like that's the wrong model, that it should be a pay-per-play, basically, type framework where the more popular a book is, the more a publisher and an author should be paid for that without any sort of a flat fee cap involved.
So what do you think needs to happen there? I mean, do you think publishers should just reject it outright until Amazon deals with these things?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I spoke with one of the participants, a publisher that's involved in it, and he told me that one of the reasons why they decided to be part of it is that most of their content is done on a work-for-hire basis with their authors. So the only thing they were doing was perhaps shortchanging themselves, but not really the authors, since there's no compensation here that's going to flow through to the authors for them, which kind of makes sense. But by the same token, I think it sets a really dangerous precedent. If you agree with a big player like Amazon to a flat fee for that kind of content placement, I don't think you're ever going to be able to go back and say, now I want it to be on a performance basis. So I just think it's really got to change there in order for more publishers to be involved with it. And again, if you've got work for hire content, perhaps it makes sense, but I just don't think it makes sense for most publishers at this point.
So staying with Amazon, what's your take on Prime? What do you think Amazon's doing there?
I think they're brilliant. I think that they're super smart in taking what has always been a physical goods type program. So you'd sign up for Prime, $80 a year, get your 2-day delivery for no additional charge. That's worked great up to now, and clearly Amazon still delivers a lot of physical products, and books are only part of their overall program. But one of the things that they've got to do is adapt in this digital world into offering more features and functionality in Prime that get away from physical goods. And so that's where we saw them get into streaming video, just like Netflix does. And it makes total sense, I think, for them to get into delivering book content that way as well. And again, my only argument with it really is just the flat fee model. But I also see where Amazon is trying to make it tilt in their favor by cramming as much as many features as they can into this service as possible for that one flat fee, and not having to share that with everybody else out there.
Now, switching gears a little bit, Todd Satterson had an interesting essay recently where he talked about the need for a paperless book, or at least the phrase the paperless book. Do you feel that we are being poorly served by the term e-book? Do we need something else?
I guess it's all in our heads, right? Because I think the great analogy that Todd used in there was back in the dawn of the automobile and how it was referred to as the horseless carriage, right? And I think that's sort of the same situation we're at. We've got this book paradigm, and now we've got this digital world, and so we're kind of fusing it together to come up with this this phrase e-book, which, as long as we're focused on e-books being nothing more than quick and dirty conversions of print products, then yes, I think that's an issue. But I think we've got enough startups out there and enough bright minds to hopefully get us past that. But unfortunately, I find myself talking far too often with other publishers out there who are still really looking at the opportunity as just another way to put their print content in another container.
Right. So last question for you. I know you've been deep in preparation for the Tools of Change for Publishing conference. Any themes or trends or surprises that have popped up as you've been putting together the schedule?
Yeah, we've really, Kattenmeyer, the other chair, and I have spent a lot of time over the last several months thinking about what the theme should be for 2012. And what we settled on, has to do with the fact that the industry continues to change, but it's happening at such a rapid pace, and there's got to be a lot of experimentation in it. So what we did was we took that old phrase, fail forward fast, and we modified it a bit to become change forward fast. And the thinking there is that we want to encourage as much agile thinking in the publishing world, so that we're putting out minimum viable products and we're experimenting. We're figuring out which ones are worthy of further investment, and we're killing off the ones that aren't. And that last part is pretty difficult to do because we all get so attached to projects that we've launched. But the theme itself of Change Forward Fast is all about applying the agile world of product development in the software space to publishing. And even Todd Satterson's book that you mentioned before really kind of ties into that very well. The other thing that we're doing with TOC New York is we're offering tracks now. So we've got sort of 3 different vocations that we're focusing on: the maker, the manager, and the marketer. So the maker is mostly your editors and production people that are doing the hands-on work. The manager is obviously kind of the executive level, or the publisher, the person managing the staff. And then the marketer track also includes sales. Now, we're going to have sessions covering all 3 of those areas, but it's not like you're locked in and you have to stick with just one. You can hop around based on what you see as most applicable to your interest and job.
Right. Well, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, Mac.
Our industry is in the middle of some of the biggest, most sweeping changes we've ever faced.
And we say that the consumer is going to demand that their content not live only on their device, on their handset, but also on their e-reader, on their tablet, and possibly shifting to their TV.
In the sense that all this stuff is going through basically one thing, one screen for everything. So wherever attention flows, money will follow. And as we see more attention going to the screens, the money will follow for sure.
We haven't got a screen life and a print life, or screen life and a real life. We just got a life. And we operate in both worlds. And we think within publishing that we should surely be doing the same.
All of that is completely automated. There simply wasn't time for human beings to be involved in the production of the final files that go into the book.
As publishers, and anybody touching this industry, what are we doing today that doesn't make sense anymore? Acceleration into the future will require innovation, new ways of thinking.
How do you get anybody to even know about your book, let alone read it?
It's hard, I think, sometimes for us to realize where it's going to be in 2 or 3 years, but I think things are going to look a lot different than they do today.
In this episode's Video Spotlight, we're featuring Alex Howard's recent interview with LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman. Hoffman explains how technology, often perceived as a threat to jobs, can actually help create them.
So we were talking off camera a moment ago about some of the big issues that exist in the country. One of them is clearly job creation. And this sort of question of whether the technology companies that exist today can either be the source of many jobs or can help enable people to connect with the jobs that exist.
Yep. So I think one of the key things, classically people worry about the productivity that comes from technology because it reduces the number of jobs. It's by making workers or processes or other kinds of things more efficient, whether it's a manufacturing line, whether it's Walmart, Amazon, et cetera. It reduces the number of jobs, and they go, okay, well, we need job creation. We don't just need productivity, we need job creation. And one of the things I think is really key is to think about, well, what are the ways that technology could actually help make the workforce adaptable, create jobs, create opportunities, these sorts of things. And I think there's a couple of different techniques that we should think about as a country. So one of them is, the Khan Academy does great for math, but what if you did a Khan Academy for vocational schools or a Khan Academy for entrepreneurship? And you said, okay, let's use technology as scalability in order to create tools to allow people to learn themselves and be more flexible and adaptable. LinkedIn obviously does this because part of the whole idea is how do you connect with people in order to find the right kinds of, like a group that you can assemble around an idea and then actually create a new kind of company, a new service offering, these sorts of things. And then I think that there's questions about, are there ways that we can, not just education, but also in kind of collective intelligence or knowledge sharing, is there ways that we can begin to deploy technology in order to make people more broadly generative, and whether or not that's the right kinds of things in the service industry, or whether it's, I think it's important to start investing in this. And classically, the mistake that people make around technology is they say, well, okay, that does make it a whole lot productive, that removes these jobs. Okay, let's figure out some technologies that help people create jobs.
Any more examples of those? I mean, we can think about this collection of mobile, local, social, the devices in people's hands.
Well, so I think some of the stuff that you see, I mean, look, this is very all early days, but like some of the things that you see with companies like GigWalk or Coffee and Power or these kinds of things, TaskRabbit, these kinds of things that are going, okay, we're creating a local marketplace where people can actually be available through their mobile phone in order to be, hey, is there work here that needs to be done, or is there work, 2 blocks away, or a little task right now? That's, I think, just the beginning in terms of the kinds of patterns you could see to say, what are other ways that we can enable jobs and opportunities to be deployed broadly? And obviously with LinkedIn, I didn't want to have the civic call to be this is how LinkedIn can do this, but powering from the grassroots up of enabling everyone to take individual control of their own economic destiny, of reaching out and finding people, figuring out what skills and all the rest of that, that's really key.
Thomas Friedman's metaphor for what's happening because of this connectivity is the world's flattening. And if you look at the hourly rate of programmers, that's changing, right? I mean, there's still certain categories in that world which are more highly paid, some less so. If you farmed out lots of tasks, what's to stop those networked jobs, those opportunities, from being done in many other places where the rate could be much lower?
Well, there's certainly nothing to prevent that in some piece. In the world flattening, that's another piece of technology which then makes jobs distributed. But for example, if they're local, right, like part of the whole thing with like GigWalk and Coffee and Power, it's like, okay, Coffee and Power, I want a burrito. Like, will someone go buy me a burrito right now? Well, that can't be farmed out. GigWalk, we want pictures of Market Street, right? And we want a picture, we want copies of every menu of every restaurant along Market Street. Those kinds of things are inherently local, and so that's an area where like kind of mobile technology says, these are the kinds of jobs that we need to do in this local region, and that is, by definition, local.
And last question, because I know that you've got to get up to stage in a moment. Last time I heard 14 million unemployed and maybe close to 3 million openings. There seems to be a mismatch there. What can LinkedIn data tell us about that? And if people are trying to figure out how to get back to work, what resources can they leverage in there?
Well, I think the key thing is, you want people to be mobile. There's a skill sets. You've got to find the skill sets. One of the products we've launched in LinkedIn is something called LinkedIn Skills, which shows you which skills are growing, what skills are related to them. And so what you do is go look at what the opportunities are and then say which set of these skills are things that I actually could build and develop. School, study, do projects on the weekend, that kind of stuff. That's a very quick answer, and I'm sure we're going to do a longer answer next time.
That's right. We'll extend the conversation. But
likewise.
For now, great
Pleasure.
talking with you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.
Here's a look at some of the top stories recently published across O'Reilly's platforms. Clay Johnson, author of the forthcoming book, The Information Diet, has a problem with the term information overload. Johnson believes that information consumption is what really needs to be addressed. In a short and informative case study, discover how Omnivore Books, a small cookbook store in San Francisco, uses Twitter to solidify relationships with customers and break through the publisher blockade. The store has distilled its Twitter process into a dead simple rule: be 1/3 personal and 2/3 professional. Finally, what happens when everyone has access to your Starbucks card? Author Jonathan Stark found out this past summer when he conducted a unique social experiment. He shares what he learned in this interview. You can find links to these posts and other resources mentioned during this episode at radar.o'reilly.com/show. Just a reminder, you can always catch episodes of O'Reilly Radar at youtube.com/O'Reilly Media. And all links featured in this episode are available at radar.o'reilly.com/show. That's all we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.